I watched his fingers open. Something small dropped into my soup. Ryan's hand withdrew before I could blink. Smooth, practiced, returning to the table like it had never left. He turned back to his father and kept talking about the Kellerman account, his voice easy, unhurried. A man without a care in the world. My spoon sat in my hand, suspended. The soup was chicken noodle. His mother made it every Sunday. Same pot, same pale broth, same overcooked carrots floating like small orange rafts. I stared at the surface. Whatever had fallen was already gone, dissolved into the liquid, invisible. Around the table, his whole family moved and laughed. His father gesturing with his fork. His sister Michelle cutting her daughter's chicken into smaller pieces. The little girl squirming. The boy making airplane sounds with his bread roll. Brin, you look pale. His mother was watching me from across the table. Her face was open and kind, the way it always was, the way it had been from the first Sunday Ryan brought me home. She had welcomed me with this same soup. I had cried in her guest bathroom quietly, because nobody had ever done that for me before. I'm fine, I said. Just tired. Ryan glanced over. He smiled at me. The familiar smile, the one that had undone me at 24. Standing in a parking lot in the rain, and then he turned back to his father. But I had seen his eyes before the smile reached them. He was waiting. I needed to think. I said I had to use the bathroom, set my spoon down, pushed back my chair. Ryan's jaw tightened. A small thing, a flicker, and I felt it the way you feel weather changing. Some pressure shift you can't explain, but your body knows. I locked the bathroom door. The exhaust fan hummed. I stood over the sink and let cold water run over my wrists and tried to remember how to breathe. My phone was in my hand. I could call 911, tell them what exactly? My husband held his hand over my soup. They would arrive at a family dinner, red and blue light through the lace curtains, and Ryan would look at them with that calm face, bewildered, gentle, and say she's been under a lot of stress. You know how it is, we've been worried about her. And his mother would nod because she would believe him because he is her son, her boy, the one who called every Sunday, who remembered birthdays, who looked at me the way he used to look at me before I started noticing the locked phone, the late calls, the way he'd sometimes watch me eat. I needed proof. I stared at the woman in the mirror. She looked like someone standing at the edge of something. Think, she said. When I came back to the table, everything was exactly as I'd left it. The bowl sat in front of my empty chair. Ryan glanced at it, then at me. Feel better? Much. I sat down and picked up my spoon. His mother was talking about apple pie. She'd made 2, one plain, one with cinnamon crumble. Did anyone have a preference? Michelle's daughter raised her hand for crumble. The boy had fallen asleep in his chair somehow, bread roll still in his fist. I watched the room the way you watch a room when you're looking for an exit. The opportunity came quickly. His mother stood to check the oven. Michelle turned to her husband. Ryan's father said something that made Ryan laugh, and Ryan reached for his water, and his eyes went to his glass, and in that window, 4, maybe 5 seconds, I moved. I switched our bowls. Mine in front of her empty seat. Hers in front of mine. Same soup, same level, same spoon angle. Ryan looked up. I lifted my spoon from what he believed was my bowl, the bowl he had doctored, the one he'd been waiting on all evening. I brought it to my lips. He watched me swallow. The tension left his shoulders so suddenly I could see it go like a coat dropping from a hook. Good, right? He said. Delicious. His mother came back from the kitchen. Let me just finish my soup, she said, and sat down and reached for the bowl in front of her. I watched Ryan's face. I noted the time 6:42. There's a particular horror in counting minutes when someone's life depends on them. 1. She laughed at something. Michelle's husband said, 2, asked Ryan's father if he needed more water. Half rose from her chair, sat back down. 3. She took another spoonful. 4. She set her spoon on the rim and pressed her fingers to her sternum. Is it warm in here? Feels fine to me, his father said. 5. I feel a little. She paused like the word had slipped somewhere she couldn't reach. Her hand went to the table's edge. Mom. Ryan was already standing. 6. She tried to rise. Her legs wouldn't hold her. 7. Ryan caught her. He was shouting for someone to call 911. his voice breaking in a way I hadn't heard before, and the room spun into chaos, Michelle screaming, his father's phone clattering to the floor and him scrambling for it, the little girl waking up and starting to cry. I sat very still and watched my husband's face while he held his mother. Not grief. Not shock. Fear. Yes. But the specific fear of a man who has just understood that he has made a catastrophic error. The fear of exposure. He looked at the bowl still sitting in front of where I'd been seated. Then he looked at me, and I looked back at him from across everything we had ever been to each other. The ambulance came in 12 minutes. I sent Michelle upstairs with the children. Alone in the kitchen, I found plastic bags and disposable gloves under the sink, the kind his mother kept for gardening. I poured what remained of the soup into a container and sealed it. I bagged the bowl. I bagged the spoon. I did the same with the bowl I'd actually eaten from, the untouched one. Then I called my brother Jason, who I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. Brin? His voice was careful. He had learned by then not to assume. I need your help. Don't ask me anything yet. He works in a medical lab. He had told me this once at a family dinner years ago, and I had stored it somewhere without knowing why. Can you come? He came in 30 minutes. I met him in the driveway. Handed him the containers. Test everything. Toxicology, whatever you can find. He looked at the bags. He looked at me. He was one of those people who goes still when they're alarmed rather than loud. Brin, what happened here? Please. 24 hours. He took them without another word. Ryan came home at 3 a.m. I was in the living room with the lights off. He sat down beside me and put his head in his hands. He looked like a man who had been crying, or like a man who knew how a man who had been crying looked. Stable, he said. They're keeping her overnight. Possible cardiac event. I said nothing. He reached for my hand. His palm was damp. I need to tell you something, he said, and something in my chest went very quiet. I've been keeping things from you. Money things. I made some bad investments. I didn't want you to worry. I kept thinking I could fix it, but we're in debt, Brin. We're in serious debt. How much? 200,000. The number sat between us. I should have told you, he said. Seeing Mom tonight, it reminded me. Life's too short to keep secrets from the person you love. He squeezed my hand. We'll figure this out together. I almost said something true. I almost asked him about the insurance policy, the one he'd taken out 6 months ago, the one I'd signed without reading, the one that paid double for accidental death. But I looked at his face in the dark and understood that the only thing keeping me safe in that room was that he didn't yet know what I knew. Together, I said, he held me for a long time. I stared at the wall over his shoulder and thought about a woman I used to be and how she would have believed every word of this. Jason called at noon the next day. Digitalis, he said. A lot of it heart medication. In a therapeutic dose, it steadies an arrhythmia. In the concentration he'd found in that soup, it would stop a heart. Would a jury call it intentional? He said the levels were so far beyond any prescribed amount that there was no other word for it. Go to the police, he said. I will, I said. Soon. When I hung up, I thought about the past 6 months. The headaches I'd attributed to screen time, the dizziness I'd blamed on not drinking enough water, the fatigue that had settled over me like weather, that I'd discussed with my doctor who had run panels and found nothing and told me to rest more, eat more iron. I had believed her. I had believed everything. He'd been building towards something. Last Sunday was supposed to be the last Sunday. Ryan texted me from the hospital. Mom's being released this afternoon. Can you pick up her prescriptions? He sent a photo of the list. 3 medications. One of them was Digitalis, prescribed for her heart. He had been stealing his own mother's pills. I picked up the prescriptions. I brought them to the house. His mother was on the couch in her dressing gown, looking diminished, a cup of tea going cold on the side table. She said, "Thank you, sweetheart," and held my hand for a moment, and I had to look away. Ryan appeared from the kitchen. "Thanks, honey." He took the bag from me. "I'll put these away." He went upstairs. I counted to 30, then followed. In the hallway outside his parents' bathroom, I heard him opening the medicine cabinet. Bottles clicking against the shelf. Then a different sound, the grinding of a mortar and pestle. I pressed record on my phone. I pushed the door open. He turned. In his hand, the pestle, white powder at its base. His mother's pills scattered on the vanity. He looked at me and I looked at him, and we stood in the ruins of 7 years. Making sure Mom's pills are organized, he said, with a mortar and pestle. Some are hard for her to swallow. I crushed them for her. Ryan, something shifted in his face. The performance dropped away, and underneath it was a stranger. Calm, cold, calculating the options. I know what you did, he said quietly. You switched the bowls. I had the soup tested. Lethal levels of digitalis. Same formulation as your mother's prescription, which you are currently crushing, which I am currently recording. He set down the pestle. Audio can be faked. The soup sample can't. Your fingerprints on the mortar can't. The traces in my blood work from the last 6 months can't. The insurance policy can't. The loan shark emails can't. Watched his face move through the calculations. The pattern is very clear, Ryan. He took a step toward me. Patterns aren't proof. No, another step. But they're a place to start. He moved fast. He grabbed my wrist and twisted, and my phone hit the tile floor, and I hit the wall, and his hands were at my throat, and the bathroom light was very white and very bright, and then there were black spots at the edges of everything. You should have just eaten the soup, he said. It would have been fast. I wasn't trying to make it hurt. Then a voice from the doorway. Ryan, what are you doing? Not a question. His mother's voice, flat with a horror that had no room left for inflection. He let go. I slid down the wall and gasped, and the black spots scattered. She was standing in the doorway in her dressing gown, one hand on the frame. She had heard us from downstairs. She had climbed the stairs alone, unsteady, 3 hours out of hospital, and she was looking at the crushed pills on the vanity and the mortar in his hand and the marks on my throat and the phone on the floor still recording. You poisoned me, she said. Mom, you poisoned your wife and you poisoned me instead. It was an accident. I didn't mean, get out of my house. His father was behind her now, one hand on her shoulder. Ryan looked at all of us. He ran. The police found him 3 hours later on the highway heading west. The trial lasted 5 months. His lawyer called me paranoid, manipulative, a woman who had staged an elaborate frame. The jury took 2 hours, 25 years to life. I sat in the courtroom and watched the bailiff take his arm, and Ryan looked back at me once. Not with remorse, with the expression of someone who has lost a game they believed they were better at. His mother came to me after. I'm sorry, she said. I should have. You couldn't have known. She hugged me for a long time. Over her shoulder I could see the window of the courtroom and the flat gray sky beyond it, and the top of a parking garage and a pigeon sitting on the edge of it. Absolutely still. You saved my life, she said. You saved mine, I told her. When you walked through that door, I live somewhere else now. Different city, different name of the street I walk down in the mornings. Different coffee shop where nobody knows my story. I have a job I like. I have a therapist I see on Thursdays. I have a cat named after no one. Some nights I lie awake and go back to that dining room. The soup, the sound of his voice carrying over the table, the weight of the spoon in my hand. I think about the moment I decided not to scream, not to overturn the bowl, not to run, not to call out across the table and watch the whole room fall apart before I had a single thing to prove. I think about choosing instead to be quiet and careful and smarter than him. People ask if I was brave. I wasn't brave. I was just more afraid of dying than I was of anything else, and sometimes that's enough to keep your hands steady when everything inside you is shaking. I'm still here. Some nights that's the whole story.